Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Keyblade Master and welcome again to my channel. Now a few months ago I did a review on the adventures of Bayou Billy, and I ended that shortly I would be reviewing a game that actually did what Bayou Billy attempted, but did it right. Today I'm finally going to be reviewing that game. Now a lot of hardcore old school gamers have already played this game and know about this game. However, if you're not one of them, you probably have never heard of this game. The game I'm talking about is Vice Project Doom. It contains everything that Bayou Billy has. It has shooting, it has the cars, and then it also has some action elements, this time more towards platforming than fighting like Bayou Billy had, but it does have those action stages, and it does all of them really well. Throw in Ninja Gaiden-like story scenes, and we have a really great game. And if you're wondering how I found this gem, well, my mom picked up a NES for my younger brother at a yard sale and this came with it. She thought it would be too scary and dark for him, so she asked me to trade Kirby for this. Best trade I've ever made, and Kirby's already a really great game, but this is one of the hidden gems on the NES, folks, and it just makes me happy to finally sit down and review it. Vice Project Doom is a game that I think it's overlooked by a lot of people when they talk about classic games. The game's narrative takes itself off of Ninja Gaiden. We have the same type of cutscenes in between stages and a lot of narrative and dialogue, which can be skipped if you want it to. But if you choose to follow it, it follows a man named Hart, who is either a mercenary, a police officer, or a PI. It never quite explains what his job is, but he's managed to find himself in a case that involves monsters, a biotech, and of course an evil corporation that manages to make its headquarters in the biblical Tower of Babel. Go figure. But basically Hart has to go out and stop all this nonsense. Now the game's narrative is a bit more complex than the standard NES game, but if you think it's above going beyond the you've got to save the girlfriend, you'd be wrong. You're still going to have to go out and save the girlfriend at one point. However, this scenario turns out very, very different than what you would expect from a game on the NES. Let's just say Hart is no Mario when it comes to this, and the whole ending is kind of dark and a little bit tragic. For an NES game, the story is pretty good. It's pretty complex. It manages to out Ninja Gaiden in many respects, and I really do enjoy the storyline in this game. If there is one word to describe the graphics, it's beautiful. The cutscenes are pretty good. The faces and the drawings and just some of the way the cutscenes are edited are pretty good. Again, for 8-bit era, it's still pretty good. Not quite up to the level of Ninja Gaiden's cutscenes, but the cutscenes are pretty beautiful. As far as the graphics go, again, you have those three types of gameplay. The car shooting game, which is what you start out on this one, is modeled after Spy Hunter. It looks and plays like that, and it's pretty fun, and as you can tell, the animation and the speed of the game goes pretty fast here, but it doesn't stop, it doesn't stutter. Overall, it looks beautiful. The side-scrolling platform action, which is the majority of the game, also looks pretty good. You got multiple layers on some of the graphics. You got some moving backgrounds for the NES. This was pretty good looking, and then the sprites for the shooter stages are very top-notch, very large, and very detailed. Overall, Vice Project Doom is a beautiful game. As far as the music goes in this game, it's only so-so, but then again, when it comes to a lot of NES games, saying that you have nothing to say about the music is kind of a good thing, because they were either really catchy or really crappy. Vice manages to hit the middle spot of being good for the action that it presents. You won't be recording the soundtrack to this either during the action stages or the melody that it plays during the cutscenes. Overall, the sound effects are also pretty good in Vice Project Doom, helping you bring you into the action as best as possible for NES standards. The sound might not be the greatest in this game, but it's not terrible. Let's start talking about the gameplay now. All three of these gameplay elements, the car driving, the platforming, and the shooting stages, are top notch. Let's start off with the car driving because it's the first stage that you actually do. Ironically, in Bayou Billy, it was the last stage. But these stages are very fast, they're very fluid, the controls are almost perfect. You just go about shooting cars, you have a nice large health bar, you can even grab food power-ups that appear at random if you're fast enough to catch them. The two bosses you fight are fairly easy to beat. Overall, these are very top-notch stages. My only complaint with the driving stages is that they're too short. They're really fun and they end before they even begin, which is kind of the opposite problem I had with Bayou Billy if you think about it. Bayou Billy stages were tedious, they were too long, and they were overly frustrating. I'll take Vice Project Doom's problems with the driving stages over Bayou Billy's problems with the driving stages any day. Next, the platforming. It is also top notch, and I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the platforming sections because it is the main game overall. But basically, you're going to be doing the usual jumping, and then you're going to be hitting enemies with, I guess it's supposed to be a laser whip. That looks more like a lightsaber rather than a whip, but whatever. But you're going to be hitting enemies with that. You also have a gun that's useless because its bullets don't go very far, and a few hand grenades, which do come in useful in some boss battles in a few situations. But for the most part, these platforming segments are well designed, they're fun, and they're not too hard. I won't lie and say that Vice Project Doom is an easy game. It's not. It falls into the NES trope of needing to be hard in order to extend its gameplay. Back in the day, folks, the developers gave us our money by sending us back to the beginning whenever we got frustrated. Vice Project Doom is hard, but it's fair for the most part. Game over sends you back to the beginning of a certain stage. However, deaths don't send you back too far, and the stages aren't usually long enough to feel cumbersome. I do have problems with the bosses, and mainly some of them are really, really freaking hard and take a while to memorize the pattern and the pattern you need to follow in order to beat them, while others are just, you can get up close and just smack the living heck out of them until they die. And it's not always necessarily first stage bosses that are easy and later bosses that are hard. No, this one kind of goes up and down and all over the place. That's like my only complaint with these platforming segments, is the guns and the bosses kind of being out of whack when it comes to difficulty. But again, these are mostly small complaints. Finally, we get to the shooter part. And the shooter part is actually the weakest in this game. Kind of ironic, it was the strongest in Bayou Billy, but it's the weakest in this game. Don't get me wrong, these segments are fun. It's nice little shooting gallery stages. You do get to shoot enemies and you even get to throw grenades, so they're fairly fun to play through. My only problem comes with the shooting reticle. It's just a little bit slow and on the sluggish side. You also have no zapper support for these, but I think that's a good thing because I really don't want to have to be switching peripherals, and anyways, the zapper won't work on modern day TVs. I give Vice Project Doom a 4.5 out of 5. It's about as perfect as you can get for an NES game, and if you're wondering, will this ever hit the Virtual Console? The answer is probably not, unfortunately. It's a shame that such a good game will never probably have a legitimate purchase download service anywhere, and it's kind of confusing. Vice Project Doom was made by a company called Sammy. If you're unfamiliar with them, it's because they don't really make video games anymore. They make pachinko machines and other machines mainly in Japan. However, they do own a video game company that is more well recognized. They own Sega. Sega, of course, supported the original Wii Virtual Console. They give a whole bunch of Sonic games each year to Nintendo, so they are in fairly good terms with Nintendo. So if you're wondering, why the heck are we never going to see a Virtual Console release for this, it's kind of even more confusing. When the Virtual Console was first released on the Wii and people started putting out games to be downloaded and purchased, IGN actually called Sammy and asked them if they were going to put Vice Project Doom on the console, because after all, like I said, Sammy owned Sega and Sega was putting up their Genesis games. And basically, the customer service rep kind of responded going, Vice Project, what? Sammy doesn't even know if they own the rights to this game. So it's going to be a while before this hits any type of legitimate download service, unfortunately. It's a really great game. It deserves to be played by kids in this generation. They should have an opportunity to make a legitimate purchase of this game if they want to try an old school classic. Anyways, that's enough of this ramble. This is Tommy the Keyblade Master signing out.